sewing friends. Today I have a mother of the bride dress that I'm going to be hemming. When I had her come over, I had her try it on, and then I pretty much lay on the floor in front of her and pin it until it's where she wants it. She's gonna be dancing, she doesn't want to trip. She's a middle-aged woman. So I marked it. I marked it with pins. Can you see? See if you can see. Marked it with pins. I put several pins in it. And made sure it was the right length. I measured it. And my measurement says 1 3/4 inch off of the hem. All right. Looks like it might be closer to 2 inches, but that's more closer to 1 3/4. This is closer to 1 3/4. This looks like it might have been closer to 2, but I'm gonna go 1 3/4. So the first thing I did was I wound a bobbin, but I only wound the bobbin halfway because I'm only going around this dress 1, 2, 3 times, and later I'm gonna just take the thread out of the bobbin if I don't use it. So I just wound half a bobbin. So first what I'm gonna do, I'm not going to cut this dress. I have a hook up here. That hook is for hanging the dress so that it doesn't slide off my sewing machine or my table here. It's very convenient if it's a nice dress, if it's a bridesmaid dress, or if it's a fancy dress. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to sew 1 3/4 inches just like this. After I get done sewing, I'm going to take my scissors and carefully cut it down, then fold it again and sew it again. Now, I'm going to mark it as I sew. Or actually, I'm not going to mark it. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to put my ruler down at 1 3/4. Now, I'm actually going to do it at less than 1 3/4. I'm going to turn under 1/4 inch after I sew it. So I'm going to do 1 1/2. I'm going to sew it at 1 1/2, and then I'm going to turn it under 1/4 inch, sew it again, and I want to hem it as much like they did as I can. So if I look at it, they turned it under maybe more than 1/4 inch. If you look at that, that is almost 3/8 inch twice. So let's think about this. Because you can see through here, they turned it in 1/4 inch and then went over the 1/4 inch about a 3/8 inch. So this is a total, what's 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch? 5/8 inch. So let me think. If I sew it and turn it, I only need 3/8 inch, almost 3/8 inch. So I'm gonna do, since I was almost at 2 inches, I was between 1 3/4 inches and 2 inches for the hem. So I'm just going to do 1 1/2, and if it turns out to be almost 3/8 inch, it's gonna be okay, because I was almost at 2 inches anyway. So I'm going to measure, I'm gonna put my slide at 1 1/2, which I think it is at, let's see. Yeah, it's at 1 1/2. Can you see that? And as I sew, I'm just gonna keep measuring as I sew. This is my favorite way to do it. If you could measure beforehand, it'll take you 30 minutes. This will not hold a chalk mark because it's some kind of stretchy tool. It's pretty and it lays nice, but it doesn't hold a chalk mark. So I'm just going to turn it up 1.5 inches. I'm going to sew all the way around and then I'll trim it. Let's hope this works. Okay, my machine has this wonderful little button. This is the presser foot. I can loosen this on delicate, thin fabrics so that it doesn't push it and stretch it while it sews. So yeah, I'm doing that. I'm going to try to sew a 1/8 inch hem. I said try because this is a stretchy tool, and last time I was on stretchy tool, it was very frustrating. So I'm going to try to sew a 1/8 inch hem right along this edge. I'm going to adjust this because it's not wanting to feed it through. I'm going to push it down just a little. We're going to try again. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. Looks good to me. That makes me breathe a big sigh of relief because now I just want to make sure it's not sewing a fullness into the stitch because this is stretch. Sorry, I pushed a button. This is stretchy tool of some kind and I don't want it to sew any fullness or waviness into it. This is the outside of the dress, the outside hem, so we don't want to mess this up. 1.5 inches. Okay, something just happened. My bobbin thread got caught and it won't let go. And it's got the fabric. I'm going to cut the strings and make sure I do not cut the fabric. I don't know what happened. There's a thread going all the way around my bobbin case. Not good. Okay. Once is okay. If it happens twice, I'm going to have to do something else. Let's try it again. Maybe I'm too close to the edge. I might come in just a little bit. I need to take these pins out because these pins are marked to 1 3/4 inches, and I'm sewing 1 1/2 so that I can roll this hem up 1/4 inch. So I'm just gonna go ahead, take all these pins out. I shouldn't have left them in. This is the kind of fabric that you can snag it on a pin. It will pull one string and then you are in trouble. So make sure you don't do that. Let's keep going. So my bobbin thread is caught and not very happy about it. But if you yank as hard as you can, nothing ever good happens if you yank as hard as you can. I'm gonna cut these strings off carefully. I'm gonna see if there was any damage. Doesn't look like it. Why? This does not normally happen, and I don't know why it's happening right now. I'm gonna keep going. Let's try this again. Try not to say bad words. All right, so now I am going to cut. I'm going to cut off this. Let's see, how close am I going to get? Let's see if that's 3/8 of an inch, because I'm going to turn it up like this and sew it one more time. That's only 1/4 inch, so I can do that or a little bit more, which will give me some room for error. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting to check to see if you've seen that. That's enough room. All right, that I can turn that. Now what you don't want to do, here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to get so close to the stitching that you cut the stitching. You don't want to cut a hole in the other side. So this step sometimes takes me longer than sewing because I really want to be careful. I really don't want to put a hole in this dress because I don't even know how I would repair that, a hole in this dress, in this stretchy tool stuff. So we're going to be real careful. We're going to make sure that there's nothing stressing this out. Now I just noticed something. Can you see that? We're skipping stitches. Some of these stitches are, these stitches right here are all small. Can you see this? I want you to see this. These stitches are all small, and right here, we're skipping stitches. Now, just gonna see if that's happening everywhere. No, I don't even see it happening again. But this is okay for now because we're folding this under. But if that was on the outside, I don't like how that looks. I don't know if I could live with that. But let's keep cutting, and I'm gonna keep my eye out to see if anyone else or any of the other stitches have been dropped. Before I sew the hem on the outside of this dress, I'm going to practice because I was skipping some stitches or dropping stitches on my machine. And I'm going to practice sewing through 3 layers of this hem that I cut off and see if I'm still dropping stitches, because sometimes you drop stitches because you're sewing on something so thin or stretchy that it won't sew. So I'm going to practice for a minute, and I'm going to see if sewing through 3 layers of this, I'm going to drop any stitches. So there's no stitches dropped here. Oh, there's one. Right there. That's the only stitch I missed. All right, it dropped. Huh. Well, what other options do I have? None. So I'm going to do this anyway and hope that we don't drop stitches. I can't sew on the inside like I did on the hem. I need to sew on the outside because look, the outside stitching looks so much better than the bobbin stitching, doesn't it? I think so. Not a ton better. So in a pinch, it would be okay, but I think I can do this. I'm going to sew on the outside, which means I have to sew blind. I'm going to fold it. But I can see. See, I don't have to sew blind because I can see through this stretchy tool. And I'm going to sew I'm going to fold it 1/4 to 3/8 inch in. And sew on the top of that fold like it was, like the original that's hanging around my neck. Like the original. I'm going to try to sew it like the original and do about that much. But not more than 3/8 of an inch because that's what we figured for our hem. Okay, 2 things you do not want to do. You don't want to stretch it as you sew, so don't hold it back, let it feed in. You also do not want to miss that fold right there that's underneath that you can kind of see. All right, if you are sewing a dress and you can't see through this, you're going to have to go by feel and watch your seam allowance. You can do it. I'm going to look at this to see if I have dropped any stitches. And this looks pretty good. This looks really good. All right, I like it. Now I'm gonna hem the lining of this blue dress. It looks like this. Now I only need to take off 1 inch. This hem is 7/8 of an inch. So it's really nice when I can just cut this off, or, you know, sew a little, you know, hem and then cut it off. But I can't because this is 7/8 of an inch. Now, I took 1 3/4 inch off the outside of the dress. And so I could take off 1 3/4 inches off the inside because that's how the dress was made. When I measured it, I turned it up 1 inch and it looked okay. But I'm gonna take it off more than 1 inch because that's how it was made. Because taking this out, this is a hem stitcher. Taking out this hem stitching, 20 minutes at least. And I would also be frustrated. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did on the outside of the dress. I'm going to fold it. I'm going to hem it, and then I'm going to trim it off. That means instead of 1 inch, I'm probably going to end up doing a total of 1.5 inches. It won't make a difference. This is the lining, and it's going to save me 20 minutes. I'm not going to measure. I'm just going to hem, you know, that much. That's how much I want to hem because that gives me enough room with my scissors to cut it off. I'm not going to measure. I can just do it without measuring. I think I'm going to change my mind. This was originally done with a hem stitcher. And I like to do things how they were originally done. And I have a hem stitcher. Now that means I'm going to have to change my fabric, or I mean my thread. But I can't be that lazy. I'm going to take this stitching out. I'm actually going to, I'll show you in a minute. Let's take the stitching out. Okay, so if I'm going to use my hem stitcher, I can go ahead and cut this off. I want to see how high this is going to be if I cut it off and roll it under. So this has been rolled over under 7/8 of an inch. If I cut it off right here and roll it under 7/8 of an inch to right there, the total I'm going to take off is 1 3/4. And that's okay. That's okay with me. That's how much I took off on the outside. That's how the dress was originally made. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut this hem off. I'll show you where. As close as I can. As close as I can to that stitching. All the way around. Then we'll go change the thread on my hem stitcher. and I'll show you how to use that. So here's my hem stitcher, except for I forgot my dress. Here's my hem stitcher. I've changed the thread to light blue. I only had 2 of the right color. That one's not really the right color, but it'll be okay. I'm gonna set you right here. So what is a hem stitcher? A hem stitcher is kind of like a sewing machine and a serger kind of combined to one. It loops the threads on the back, but on the front it's just a double stitch. You can also do a single stitch or a triple stitch, but the original dress had a double stitch, so that's what I'm going to do. All the way around. Here's what my challenge is. I need to fold under about 7/8 of an inch, and I can't see through it, so I'm going to have to go a little blind. I want the hem that's folded under to be right in between these 2 lines. These 2 lines right here. Let me see if I have a better pointer. So I've got my needles here set up to sew on these 2 lines. The one on the left is here, one on the right is here. I'm going to fold the hem under and have it be somewhere in between these 2 so it will loop underneath and keep that hem from fraying. So that's my challenge. That's what I'm going to try and do. And I didn't mark the 7/8 of an inch. Why, you're asking me? Well, I don't need to. You can if you want to, but I don't need to because I can kind of tell what 7/8 of an inch is. All right, so I'm going to fold it under. You know what, maybe I'll get my ruler just to check, but I believe that's probably pretty close. Abby, will you throw me a measure?
Where is it? Oh, I found it.
Thank you. Oh my goodness, 7/8 of an inch. Yep, I can kind of tell. So I'm gonna go 7/8 of an inch. I'm gonna fold it under. I want it to end, yep, right between there. So I will check myself every once in a while to make sure I'm doing 7/8 of an inch, but I can kind of tell. And if I'm off 1/8 of an inch, it doesn't matter. Here we go. That's real nice. Okay. I am so good. All right. So this is the lining. That's the worst. I'm not a fan of that, but this is the lining. It's done like the original dress was, it's sewn like the original dress was sewn, which I think that looks good. I finished this dress. I did end up pressing it. After I practiced pressing it on the part of the hem that I cut off to make sure that I wouldn't melt it, I pressed it and it turned out real nice. Look at how nice. Thanks for watching.